All right, and welcome back. And today we're back with something a little bit different. Today it is it's actually a sports media related video. So if you're familiar with a lady named Malika Andrews, she is a sportscaster, sports announcer on ESPN who does get a lot of hate. I will say now. I wouldn't say I'm like a fan of Malika Andrews, but I don't hate Malika Andrews. I don't know. I don't follow enough of her opinions or anything to be like, oh, this woman is like against people. But like people, and especially like I will say, black men do seem to be kind of like against Malika Andrews. I don't know what it is personally. Again, I've seen snippets that I felt like were a little bit like, well, that's a little too far for what she said, but that's me. Let's see what Spex Media has to say about the curious case of Malika Andrews. So, I feel like I got through that intro a little bit quick, but guys, I just want to get to this video because this is kind of interesting to me. I want to see I want to see what the curious case is about. And if you want to see what the curious case of this YouTube channel is about, then you can hit like, comment, and subscribe. Because there's a curious case with that Super Mario video that I put out. And it has been removed because of that curious reason. I would love to know why mine was removed after almost 300 views in just a few days. So, guys, once again, please like, comment, and subscribe. That way YouTube won't come through this door. And all right, so the curious case of Malika Andrews. Let's get to the video.
It's the 2023 NBA draft, and the ESPN crew is doing their normal coverage on the NBA draft when the conversation about draft prospect Brandon Miller was brought up. Miller is a 6'9" small forward who played at Alabama, and he had a pretty good season there. It was projected that he could end up going in the top 3, which was justified after the season he had. Now, as Brandon Miller was brought up, Malika Andrews, an analyst for ESPN, had this to say about him.
Involving a case where his former teammate and another man, they've been indicted for capital murder in the fatal shooting in Alabama, has described Miller as a cooperating witness. How is this factoring, if at all, into how teams are evaluating him?
Of course, a lot of people are frustrated. Why would Malika Andrews bring this up on this young man's special night? Especially when Brandon Miller wasn't even the main suspect in the case she's talking about. Today, we are going to be looking...
Well, because he was a part of the case. And this is ESPN. Have you guys not ever watched ESPN before? Like, if Stephen A. Smith brought that up, I don't think anybody would ever complain. Like, realistically, they asked... this person was involved in, a murder situation. Like, I remember that case. Like, if I remember correctly, if he is the person that I think he was, that means, like, the situation was, like, two guys were, like, in a car. One of them was like, yo, give me my gun right quick. I'm at my girlfriend's place. I'm pretty upset. Give me my gun. He gave him the gun, and then the dude went and shot his girlfriend. Now, I don't want to just spout that out. So allegedly in all of what I just said. But like, I feel like if you are like being talked to by the police about a murder investigation, but you're also getting drafted to the NBA, the NFL, the NHL, the freaking MLB, somebody may bring that up on your draft night. Like, I'm sorry to tell you this, guys. Like, the things you do in life may come back up sometimes in the most inconvenient moments of your life.
Looking into Malika Andrews, because believe me, this isn't the first time that she's done something like this. So let's give this clip some context first. In this clip is Malika Andrews talking about Brandon Miller and a case that he was involved in while at Alabama. Now, unlike the other cases we're going to talk about today, I would argue that this was the most popular out of all of them. Miller was arguably the best player in the NCAA while at Alabama, so of course the case got a lot of coverage. Now, in this clip, Malika explained that he was a part of a murder case involving one of his teammates. Now, all she mentions about Miller is that he was linked to it and that he was very cooperative during the investigation, but she misses a lot of context. For one, she almost ignores his entire role in this case altogether. Darius Miles was a player at Alabama who killed a woman named James Harris. Another person named was Michael Lynn Davis, who was also charged for being his accomplice. So right away, let's get it straight. Miller was not charged and he was not even a suspect. Miller's involvement in the case was driving Darius Miles to the scene according to police. However, Miller was oblivious to what was going on. The police said he might have supplied the gun, but sources have also said the gun actually belonged to Miles. trials. Believe what you want to believe, but the bottom line,
Bro, listen to what you just said. This is my biggest issue with stuff like this. You literally said he wasn't a suspect. He wasn't the person who did it. Okay, that's obvious. He drove the person who committed the murder to the murder, and they allegedly handed him the weapon that he used to commit said murder. Like, I'm sorry to tell you this, but those are kind of like real things that people like really think about. Like, yo, what is your decision making at this moment in your life? Should I draft a guy who hangs out with, who like, okay, I don't know. There are questions though. Like, realistically, and obviously I'm going to sound like the guy who just hates this guy, even though I don't know this guy. But like, if you have a brain, you're going to be like, okay, should I draft this guy because I don't know who he hangs out with? Like, does he make good decisions? Is he a good decision maker? I don't think that was a good decision. I'm sure there are points in that night he may or may not have been able to make different decisions that may or may not have changed what may or may not have happened. I mean, realistically, that's how you got to think about it. If you own a company, if you have something to lose by drafting this guy, those are the type of conversations you have. And her being a journalist probably also thought about that type of stuff. You guys are, anybody who thinks that was going too far of like bringing it up is coping. You're being ridiculous. Grow up.
line is that Brandon Miller was not and will not be charged for this case. So tell me why Malika Andrews would bring this up as his life was about to change forever. Now, if this was a situation where he fell down the draft and he was going to maybe the 10th or 20th spot, I'd understand why this gets brought up. However,
why? What would it matter what spot he gets in the draft that this information wouldn't be brought up? What is, like, where's the point of like, oh man, he's a 10th pick. You can bring up the fact that the police talked about him, but don't do it to a top 5 pick. Like, if a top 5 pick gets in like trouble with the police, or not even in trouble, if the top 5 pick gets, you know, a speaking to with the police about a situation that they were involved in, they were in the vicinity. You're just being like, no, don't talk about that before his big night. He's got a big night. But those 10 through freaking 300 guys who are going to get drafted over the next weekend, you can talk about them because we don't really care about them as much as what you're saying.
Was not the case, and it was never going to be the case. Brandon Miller was a projected top 3 pick in this year's draft, and he wasn't number 3. He would end up getting selected number 2 by the Charlotte Hornets, which did not surprise me. Victor Wembanyama was going to go number 1 no matter if Brandon Miller was involved in this case or he was not. Wemby was easily the best player in this draft, and there was nothing that was going to stop him from going 1. So Brandon Miller going 2 was honestly the right decision. So again, for no reason, this case was brought up to ask Woj how would this affect his draft stock, which was funny because again, he got drafted not even 5 minutes later. Everyone knew he was going to go 2 or 3, so why did you think it would even play a factor? Malika might have—
Bro, calm down. Nobody thought he was going to go 2. Everybody thought that Scoot Henderson was going to be drafted number 2, and everyone is saying Jordan fumbled the bag by drafting this guy number 2. Like, what is this revisionist history that we're doing already?
Hidden agendas, but she's not dumb. She knows that Miller was a top 3 pick, and reports said he was going to go to number 2. So her bringing this up was not a coincidence. It was her doing what she's done for years. Tear down black men because she doesn't respect them. And I'm not just some incel ready to tear down any female in sports. I'm someone who has seen her tear down black men for her own reasons multiple times. Let's go back to 2022. The Boston Celtics had just gotten rid of Ime Udoka because of a cheating scandal. To replace him, they would bring on interim head coach Joe Mazzulla. Of course, this was a prominent topic, so ESPN had to talk about it. However, the way Malika Andrews would cover Joe Mazzulla was very questionable.
Be remiss not to also mention that Mazzulla was arrested twice at West Virginia, once in 2008 for underage drinking and aggravated assault. He pled guilty, paid a fine, and then again in 2009 for domestic battery after an incident at Morgantown Bar. The domestic battery case never went to trial. It was settled in August of 2009. He paid a $100 fine and court costs, plus had to do 40 hours of community service. Now, that was 13 years ago. He settled and paid both fines. So
I don't need to tell you why bringing up an incident from 15 years ago makes no sense, especially when you said it yourself that he would not go to trial. It's been 15 years and it's—
Guys, here's why what he's saying doesn't make sense. And I know what you guys are thinking. Like, she said all this stuff and she brought up incidents about his past. Have you guys ever really paid attention to what anybody says in reporting? Like news reporters, sports reporters, anybody who reports information or does any bit of journalism in their life. They are going to bring up your past and use it either for or against you in any situation you're going through in the moment. Like, I'm sorry to tell you guys this, but that's what they do. Also, here's the big shocker. She didn't write all that. Like, the staff at ESPN and someone helped her put all that together. If you think that she wrote that whole thing and then also like just got it on TV without discussing it to a board of people, and also the people on her set that she's speaking to in the background weren't also in that meeting when they discussed what topics they were going to go over and how they were going to go over and which sides that each person was going to be on, then I'm sorry to tell you this, you may not be that smart. You're easily gullible. You're a very easily gullible person if you don't think that every show on ESPN, especially because they're owned by Disney, doesn't have some type of meeting, board meeting. And actually, I've heard them talk about it. Listen to these people. Listen to Stephen A. Smith. They have board meetings before the show. And they're just talking about how they're going to come at each topic, who's going to be what position, because they're not these people. They don't always believe in the views that they say when they say the views on TV. Sometimes they have to play a role to get, to do a thing. Like, she plays the role of the straight face journalist. Like, she's the straight man in the situation. That means like when other people are being goofy, like Richard Jefferson, things like that, she's being like, here's me being in control of the situation. Here's me being the person who's being serious about situations. When they talk about topics, she's the person that they get to talk about the serious side of the topic. She's not the person they get to be like, yo, do the sports journalism part of the topic. Do this part. They're purposely getting her to do these parts of the videos and do these parts of the topics because they feel like for some reason she's the best face for it. Maybe she can take the heat. Maybe she just like knows how to like interpret it herself really well when she like makes these points. But realistically, if she wasn't on the show, all these same things would still be brought up just by a different person. I'm sorry to tell you this. It'd probably also be a woman. People just kind of like would prefer when women talk about stuff like that versus men. If you don't believe so, like, look at why they do this and look at every other show. Literally look at every other show. If this was the curious case of any other woman in sports media, it would be the same situation.
Seems like Mazzola has become a better man, yet you felt it was justified to bring up an old case to talk down on someone. Now, I made a video about this about a year ago and it blew up. And in the comment section, a lot of people were reminding me of other times that Malika has done this exact same thing. So this Joe Mazzola thing wasn't just a one-off, because if it was, you could say it was a mistake or bad journalism, but it wasn't. Mind you, I haven't even brought up the fact that she tried to gaslight Stephen A. Smith on national television for blaming women. The reason for this, well, his coverage on this Ime Udoka situation, which was crazy to say the least. Oh, and she also kicked Kendrick Perkins off the show because he had a different opinion, which again is just something to think about. Oh, but I'm not done. Let's go back a little bit further. Adrian Payne was a former NBA player who didn't really have a successful career. However, he was a star in college when he played for the Spartans at Michigan State. However, on May 9, 2022, Adrian Payne was murdered in Orlando, Florida due to being shot. A lot of people showed their support for Payne as he was pretty well liked. While people were planning their tributes and sending their condolences to Payne's family, Malika had other plans.
Former Michigan State star Adrian Payne was shot and killed in Orlando, Florida, early Monday morning, the Orange County Sheriff's Office said. And Payne was the 15th pick by the Atlanta Hawks in 2014. Played 4 seasons in the NBA with multiple teams. In 2018, he was waived by the Magic after he was named in a report by ESPN's Outside the Lines that he'd been involved in an alleged sexual assault at Michigan State in 2010. No charges were filed in that case.
I cannot begin to explain why this is messed up. Once again, he wasn't fucking charged. They were literally allegations. Not to mention, that's not why he got waived. In his final season, he played 5 games and was barely in the rotation. So once again, she brought up an old case with zero relevance. Now let's compare.
Okay, guys, this video is going to be the prime example between like people who do YouTube journalism and people who actually like do journalism. Like, again, it's almost like this person has never watched an actual like not even ESPN. Let's get off of that. Watch CNN. Watch how they talk about people within newscasting. Like, legitimately, I want you, everyone who's watching this video, to like go back and watch the actual news and watch how journalists talk and why they do the things they do. Like, I understand that was a little disrespectful, but again, she didn't write this. Before she said this on TV, a room full of people went through that information and was like, you should add this, you should add that, you should add this, because it all, and then once they said it, they went over it again and was like, this is what we're going to be doing today. Now, there may be moments where somebody goes off script and says something they're not supposed to say, but during a segment like that, she's not going to be the person to do it, because every person in those type of industries, in that type of field where you're like a cast full of people, one of them is going to be an actual journalist. Probably at least 1 or 2 of them are going to be like former stars. They get a little bit more leeway. They're going to be the ones who are going to be like, yo, here's my ridiculous opinion. This is why Kendrick Perkins gets kicked off for saying dumb stuff, because he does say dumb stuff because he's not an actual journalist. You know, and this is like YouTube journalism where like you don't actually see how, like, you don't realize how newscasters go. And it just like your personal opinions, like you're getting very personally offended by these things that like realistically are not actual things to be offended or like upset about. You know, I get you're collecting the case files here, and I'm assuming in the next 5 minutes there's going to be actual evidence on why she hates men, black men especially. Also, she's talking about the NBA. So like I don't know if you know this, but she's rarely gonna have a chance to talk about white guys.
This tribute to another dead person that she talked about. A writer for the Mavericks by the name of Jonathan Tjarks died, and Malika Andrews talked about it on the show in a very different tone.
I do want to take a moment to acknowledge Jonathan Tjarks, an NBA writer for The Ringer, who died over the weekend after a battle with a rare form of cancer. And he was just 35 years old. Tjarks wrote extensively about the Mavericks, and we at NBA Today send our heartfelt condolences to his wife, Melissa, and his son, Jackson, and his entire family.
The way she talks about these two.
Yeah, there's going to be a difference between the way she talks about other fellow journalists. What the actual heck is happening right now? Yes, there's going to be a bias. When other basketball players talk about basketball players, they're going to talk about them in a different way than they talk about journalists, right? When a basketball player mourns Kobe, they're not going to mourn Kobe the same way they mourned this sports reporter. Like, did his own team that he reported on, did the players from them mourn him? Like, I'm probably sounding like I don't want to sound like I'm even defending her like this, but like I'm literally coming at this with like what's the actual evidence that she hates these people? And then I'm listening to what he's saying and I'm like, what are you talking about for real? Like, you kind of just sound like you really just sound like you don't like the way she says things, and that's kind of like enough for you. Like, I don't like the way she says this. Here's a bunch of reasons why I don't like the way. This is like Twitter responses. This is like how Twitter thinks.
Two people are in very different ways. Now, Charks didn't have anything dirty about him to talk about, but someone that had some allegations towards him was Luke Walton. Luke Walton was hired by the Mavericks as an assistant coach, and of course, ESPN was going to talk about it. Just like Mazzulla, they had to talk about a coaching hire. In 2019, Luke Walton had been accused of sexual assault to a sports reporter around 3 years before he joined the Cavs. You would think Malika would have a lot to say about this because it involves sexual assault on a reporter. Well, let's see how she talked about it.
Cavaliers, they are hiring Luke Walton as an assistant coach. That's according to ESPN senior insider Adrian Wojnarowski. Walton joins Coach JB Bickerstaff's staff. Say that 10 times fast. After spending the past 5+ seasons as head coach of the Los Angeles Lakers and Sacramento Kings, Walton, who was dismissed after a 6-11 start with the Kings in November, was part of an NBA championship coaching staff with Golden State under Steve Kerr in 2015.
There is a clear-cut difference between...
Yeah. How about this? Let me explain the clear-cut difference to you. It's multifaceted. One, the Cleveland Cavaliers, my team, if you guys can believe it or not, is not a major market team. Outside of having LeBron, when they talk about the Cleveland Cavaliers on TV, they're not going to give they're not going to give a lot of details. They're not going to go talk about the Cavs for 10 to 15 minutes on television. They'll talk about the Cavs for 5 minutes, maybe 6. They might give us an extra minute or so, but they're not going to talk about Cleveland for long, especially right these days. Second of all, Luke Walton is his father is Bill Walton, NBA legend Bill Walton, who also is in sports media. He commentates 4 games, and I believe he works for ESPN. You're not going to talk about him the same way as you talk about players. It is a contradiction. It is a double standard, but they're not going to talk about people like that the same. And the far as the coaches go, they're going to talk about the coach because he had assaults and then was involved in something that got him fired because of sexual misconduct. If somebody gets fired from their job for sexual misconduct, a person who reports on the news may bring up the fact that they had sexual allegations or some type of assault cases in the past. A person dying and then their whole career is spilled out, including those allegations, I will say is a little bit over the edge. It is a little bit why would they bring this up? But I would also say, why would they bring this up? Not her. She is not writing this information down. She is playing a part, and she is one actual journalist in a room full of other real journalists. She's not in the field doing this stuff. At best, she goes out and does interviews with players. That is literally the most journalism she's doing these days. Her career before this, anything before ESPN was probably real. Anything since ESPN has been a room full of writers, just like everyone else. You want to know the difference between seeing somebody with a room full of writers and somebody who just goes off the top of the dome and just says what they want to say on TV? Look at Kendrick Perkins, and then literally look at somebody freaking Nick Wright. Nick Wright will go and say what he wants to say, but he's still going to have writers and he's still going to have people with him, and he's going to have journalists going out making sure information's correct. They have these people with them that go out and they're like, yo, I want to know this information. Can you fact check this for me? Or somebody will come to them with hey, I did this research on this topic. Can you talk about it on TV? Because they are doing more than just going home, doing 10 hours of journalism and then coming on TV every day and then talking about stuff. They have a room full of people who's giving them subjects to talk about.
In how she talks about Luke Walton and how she talks about Joe Mazzulla. Mind you, these were months apart, so why she decided to have a different attitude with Mazzulla starts to make sense. And I wish this was all my proof. I wish I could stop the video and let you come to your own conclusion, which would probably not be on Malika's side. But there's another case that I've never talked about involving yet another black man in Jalen Rose. About 2 months ago, Jalen Rose appeared on NBA Today while giving Malika Andrews a side hug, which during that she told him to get his fingers out her armpits. While that would be bad if he did, admit it, he didn't. Actually, we have clear-cut proof. If we slow down the video, we can clearly see 5 fingers on her arm, which I don't know if you've ever hugged anyone, but that's a pretty normal thing to do. I don't know if she actually had anyone in her armpit. Some said it was Richard Jefferson, but he's at a pretty far distance for him to do that, so I genuinely think she just made it up. Now, to be fair, there was a claim that this got Jalen Rose fired. However, this has been proven false. Bossack Sports is the one who actually made the tweet that Jalen Rose got fired, so tread carefully with all this. But it is something to think about, as she did say that, and people like Kwame Brown actually came after her. Like I said, it is very hard to see everything she's done in this video and not think about everything in a different light. On my last video, a lot of people commented the fact that she was allegedly dating some guy named Dave McKinnon, who is a writer for ESPN as well. He's the same guy who actually called Russell Westbrook a vampire, believe it or not. Anyways, I can't confirm if this is true, but most people have tried to claim that this shows that she doesn't like black people and only respects white people. Now, in her defense, I'm gonna defend her for a sec, because I don't think it is fair to use how someone dates someone as a way of saying, oh, they're racist. I honestly believe that you're allowed to date anyone you want, whether they're white, black, Mexican, Asian, it does not matter. Despite me criticizing in her video, I just don't think it's fair to say that her dating a white guy makes her 100% racist. But then again, it's interesting to think that she's allegedly dating the same guy who called Russell Westbrook a vampire. At this point, I feel like some people in the media will truly...
What does that mean? He's a vampire. What does that mean? Is that racist? Does he murder people and suck their blood and steal their innocence and their youth? Or did he just say like this guy like has been looking the same age since he got into the league? I don't know which, like, what case did he use? Like, in what situation did he say Russell Westbrook is a vampire? And also, how is being a vampire racist? Like, every vampire I can think of outside of like 2 are white. Eddie Murphy is the one and Blade is the other. Who are these other black vampires?
Never change. And I think Malika is one of those people that falls into that category. For years, she has tried to make black people genuinely look bad, whether it's by coincidence or not. Not to mention, it's happened multiple times and it's hard to look at every time she does it once more. But there is one possibility that I don't think we've considered. One that would make a certain company look very, very bad. What if it's not her fault? What if we shouldn't blame Malika Andrews? Maybe she's being sat up by the network. We have proof that ESPN uses a teleprompter, which should not be much of a shock to anyone. Is there a possibility that ESPN is using her to say these things? If ESPN is putting these things on the teleprompter, then it makes them look 10 times worse compared to Malika. But if Malika is saying these things on her own account, well, she is to blame. But I do wonder about this concept of ESPN using a gorgeous female to say the messed up shit that they want to say. Because to this day, Malika Andrews is considered one of the most attractive female analysts in sports. Most people will ignore the messed up shit that...
What are you bringing up how attractive she is for? What are you bringing this up for? What are you bringing this up for, sir? This is so fucking stupid. This is so stupid. I swear to you. He just said, oh, guys, it's possible she's using the teleprompter and that the things on the teleprompter are the things she's just saying and that she's not just saying all this stuff off the top of her head. That's the one thing that you say that could defend her. The most obvious fucking point of anything. Everyone on ESPN is speaking from a teleprompter. Even the people who go off the top of the dome start off talking from a teleprompter. They all have teleprompters. That is what teleprompters are for. This is television. What? Oh my God.
That she does because of this. However, others might still think she's attractive, but they'll look at what she does in a different light. Regardless, I think everyone is going to forget about this, but when this happens again, because I know it will, maybe we will start to question the curious case of Malika Andrews.
Guys, I'm questioning the case of where my sanity is gone. I am flabbergasted by this video and how ridiculous it is. This is pandering to like freaking incels at its finest. This is a video made for people who want to fuck Malika Andrews, but also are upset that she dates white guys and doesn't want to be with them. She probably don't even date white guys. She probably has a whole history of dating black dudes too. She probably is with a Mexican dude right now and they just think he's white. Bro, oh my gosh, I am really kind of like what did I just watch? Like, that was dumb. Like, I'm sorry to tell you this, but that was a dumb point. You made a lot of dumb points, got to one thing that was actually relevant, and then you was like, well, maybe. Guys, just follow me here. Maybe she's reading from a teleprompter. Maybe she's not the head writer and producer of the TV show that she's on. Maybe she's not the head writer of the show. Maybe if you look at the credits, you'll see who the head writer of the show is, and then you can be like, yo, that person probably has a little bit more input on what goes on the teleprompter that everyone reads than the person reading the teleprompter. Now, I know that seems crazy because we see the people on TV and we're like, no, it's the people on TV who are in charge. But it's actually not, especially when the show isn't when your name isn't in the title of the show, you really don't own that show. It's the producer's show and they named it something. You guys are a part of it. You may be the face of the show, but you're the face of the show. Any one of you can and will be replaced at any moment. Oh, guys. Again, if you think I'm just being disagreeable and I'm wrong, obviously write it down in the comments. If you know I'm right, hit the like button because you know I am. And obviously, I want all of you guys to subscribe. You know, maybe you can like subscribe to me and kind of do the like make a second thing and then use that to also subscribe to me, because you know you want to subscribe twice. You know, get that ring every 2 times every time I put out something. You know, double the notifications. So yeah, guys. Yeah, that was an interesting video. I'm not going to hit the like on that one, but I will tell you guys, if you want to see more from them, go ahead and subscribe to Spex Media, SPEX Media. And yeah, sometimes you got to agree to disagree, guys. As always, bye.